WNBA, PA, the Players Union, they're crashing out. They're crashing out, and they look less and less professional by the moment. Fans are recognizing this. There are things that they cannot keep this from getting personal.
That statement perfectly sums up everything that's gone off the rails in these negotiations. The WNBA Players Association has just released what could be one of the most carefully worded labor statements we've seen in recent sports history. Yet the response from the public has been overwhelmingly negative. Fans who originally seemed to support the players have now shifted firmly toward ownership. In a labor dispute, that's usually the exact opposite of what should happen.
Statement, quote, you may be like, Rhodes, you got glasses on. Yeah, because they released this statement with this tiny-ass writing on it. I don't think... no, that doesn't do anything for increasing image size like that. So, at midnight, the 2020 WNBA WNBPA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness.
Let's start with the timeline. On January 20th, 2025, at exactly 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement officially came to an end. A few days before that deadline, team owners made a calculated decision by publicly announcing they would not lock out the players. It was a smart strategic move that instantly gave them the appearance of acting reasonably and in good faith. Rather than responding with a similarly professional approach, the Players Association chose a different route, placing an inflatable rat outside the NBA store in New York City. Yes, an actual giant protest rat. The intention was clear: use a traditional labor movement symbol. The problem was the image it created. To many observers, it looked like billion-dollar basketball negotiations were being treated like a dockworkers' labor dispute. In modern negotiations, perception often matters as much as substance. The side that appears more reasonable typically earns public support. And public support carries enormous weight in the WNBA because, unlike most major leagues, it has never generated a profit during its 29-year existence. Player salaries have been supported largely through NBA backing and ownership groups willing to continue funding a league that consistently operates in the red. When you're negotiating from that reality, looking unreasonable is a risk.
They care about that kind of shit, but actual sports fans don't. Not only do they not care, they don't want to hear about it. So, let's keep going here. Players care deeply about their fans, take pride in honoring that loyalty every time they take the court. The league's tactics harm current and future players and marginalize the very people who show up for the game in communities across the country. This misguided approach will not work. In the face of the league and team's actions, players remain undeterred, unafraid.
Now place the two official statements side by side. The Players Association released a lengthy 347-word message loaded with phrases such as "pay equity is not optional," references to regressive provisions, and accusations that ownership was threatening player livelihoods while deliberately stalling negotiations. The overall message framed the dispute as a broader social justice battle rather than a traditional business discussion. The league's response could not have been more different. It consisted of only 73 words, delivered in a professional and concise manner, focused entirely on business realities. League officials highlighted the unprecedented growth of the sport, emphasized their commitment to substantially increasing player compensation, and reiterated their goal of maintaining long-term sustainability.
Agreement must include a salary system tied to a meaningful share of the revenue that would not exist without player labor, mandate professional working conditions, and require protections that honor players who built the league and set the next generation up for success. Make no mistake, pay equity is non-optional, and progress is long overdue. We urge the league and its teams to meet this moment. The players have already and will continue to do.
Now let's focus on the actual issues being negotiated, because the gap between what players are demanding and what owners are willing to offer explains why tensions have escalated so quickly. Ownership has already proposed significant salary increases. We're talking about a structure that would more than double average player earnings compared to the current agreement. maximum salaries would rise dramatically, and rookie-scale contracts would receive substantial boosts as well. By normal labor negotiation standards, it's a very aggressive opening proposal, especially considering the league has never been profitable. The challenge is that players are pushing for something ownership argues cannot realistically be provided right now. A 50-50 revenue sharing model based on gross revenue, similar to arrangements seen in leagues like the NBA and NFL. At first glance, that sounds completely reasonable. Athletes in major professional leagues generally receive
At this point, I mean, they have made them. If it's amazing that WNBA players made themselves feel even more insufferable than prior. That's amazing to me. That's even possible. A lot of people. Insane statement from the PA. There we go, right there. Second comment. Insufferable Players Union. Their statements are as nasty and uncouth as their attitude. It's wild. Yeah, I'm team owners. Have been for a while, even more now.
And this is where the timing of all this becomes incredibly important. The WNBA recently secured new media rights agreements that are expected to generate significantly more revenue beginning in 2026. We're talking about major partnerships with ESPN, Amazon Prime, and several other broadcasters that could potentially multiply the league's media income several times over. That's serious money. In fact, it's the type of financial growth that could finally push the WNBA into profitability for the first time in league history. The problem is that none of that money has arrived yet. Owners still don't know exactly what the financial picture will look like once those deals fully take effect. Right now, they're relying on forecasts, projections, and expectations rather than actual revenue reports and profit figures. They can see the opportunity ahead, but they haven't yet seen the results. After nearly 3 decades of covering losses and investing in a league that has consistently operated in the red, it's understandable why ownership would hesitate to commit to a long-term revenue sharing structure before knowing whether the business will actually become profitable. That's what makes the timing of these negotiations so complicated. Had the players waited until 2027, after a couple of years under the new media agreements, they would likely be negotiating from a much stronger position. Owners would have real financial data showing exactly how much money the league was generating. Discussions about revenue sharing could be based on proven results rather than future expectations. At that point, players could reasonably point to actual profits and argue for a larger share of the revenue. Instead, they're attempting to secure a revenue sharing agreement before anyone can say with certainty how much revenue will ultimately be available to distribute.
That they can never have. That's a good point. That is a good point. This is wild, and it sadly looks like no season. No one cares. Goodbye, Caitlin Clark 2026 season. They're literally comparing playing basketball to manual labor as if that's the same thing. Sorry, bees. I didn't know it was this. Hard to hoop. Do us real hoops fans a favor and cancel the whole effing league. You bees make well enough money to survive.
But the larger issue goes beyond dollars and timing. The real concern is the way the Players Association has chosen to frame this entire negotiation. Take another look at their public messaging. The statement repeatedly uses phrases such as pay equity, references to regressive provisions, and claims that certain policies no longer belong in women's basketball. Rather than presenting the situation as a straightforward contract negotiation, they're framing it as something much bigger. From a strategic standpoint, that approach may be creating problems. When a labor dispute is presented as a social justice issue, it can give the impression that anyone who disagrees with your position is not simply wrong on the business side, but wrong morally as well. It turns a financial disagreement into a question of ethics and values. That strategy can be effective when the issue involves clear discrimination or systemic inequality. However, when the discussion centers around compensation structures within a professional sports league that has yet to turn a profit, many people view the argument differently. To critics, it can appear as though social pressure is being used to strengthen a negotiating position rather than relying solely on the financial realities of the situation. Whether that's fair or not, it's a perception problem that has clearly influenced how many fans are reacting to these negotiations.
They got the wrong people involved in these negotiations. You know who should be leading them? Caitlin Clark. because you can tell she understands the balance that's got to happen. And I will go back to my original statement I made when the news started breaking that they were going to pursue more money and break off from the CBA. I said, you're doing this 2 years too soon. All right, you need to wait till the new media rights deal actually starts. You need to wait till that media rights money starts getting into owners' pockets, and then they can sit back and look at where the league is and how much profit they're finally making, because they should make some profit now.
And fans are noticing it immediately. Across social media and sports forums, countless comments are pointing out what many see as the obvious reality. The WNBA is not paying players less because of discrimination. It's paying salaries based on the revenue the league currently generates. That's not a moral issue, it's an economic one. When financial realities are framed as oppression, many people begin to tune out the argument entirely, except for those who were already committed to that viewpoint from the start. This touches on a larger challenge the WNBA has faced for years. The league has consistently tried to position itself as more than just a basketball league. It has often presented itself as a social movement, a symbol of women's empowerment, and a platform for broader political and cultural causes. While that approach resonated strongly with many longtime supporters, it also created distance between the league and casual sports fans who simply wanted to enjoy the basketball itself. The dedicated fans who supported the league through decades of limited exposure embraced that activist identity. But when Caitlin Clark brought millions of new viewers to the sport, many of those newcomers arrived because of the competition on the court, not because of the messaging surrounding it. Now, critics argue that the Players Association is repeating the same mistake during these negotiations. Rather than focusing primarily on the business realities of the situation, they have emphasized activist language and broader social themes. Their statements often sound more like rally speeches